Hey there, welcome to LearnPianoLive.com. This is an advanced lesson. So this is for students who are known by their friends as a pianist. You've got hopefully some knowledge of chords, maybe some sheet music reading, some sight reading skills. You know chords. You've been playing enough to impress almost all of your friends with your piano skills. So if that's you, you're in the right place. If you're in the lesson and it feels way too advanced, you might want to go check out yesterday's lesson, the intermediate version of this week's topic, or the lesson before that, the beginner's lesson, because those will break down the same concepts, only easier. So, but if you are an advanced student, then ask away. No question is too advanced or too obscure. So this is just all about you. You got to ask me the questions so I know what to answer and know how to help you out best. There's a couple other things I want to talk to you about too before this countdown clock gets to 0. All right, first and most important, ask a lot of questions. The way that you're going to do that is there's a couple different ways. You can jump in the chat room and talk with the other students who are logged in at the same time. I'll be watching the chat room too. You can ask your questions there. Or if it's a question that's just for me, a question about the lesson, especially if you know it's one that's going to fit best at the question and answer time at the end, then you can just put your name and your question in the box below this video, click submit, and then I will get that. Now, if you're already in the archives, if you're watching this not live, but you're watching this in the archives, then make sure at the end of the lesson you click on the survey button. You don't have to fill out the entire survey. If you want to, I'd love your feedback, but really the best part of that is that you can put your question in there, and then when you click submit, then I will get all of your questions. I'll make sure that you get them answered, whether you're in the archives or you're live. Right next to this video, there should be a PDF button and an MP3 button. Now, you don't really need those till after the lesson because I'm going to be showing you on screen the PDF and showing you how to use it. And I'll play the MP3 during the lesson too, so you know at the end of the lesson how you're going to use that. Some people, though, like to print out the PDF ahead of time, so as I'm making notes on my version, they can make the same notes on their version, but works either way. All right, this is perhaps the most important part. You need to leave the lesson when you feel like you're sufficiently challenged. So, I'm teaching these lessons, 12 to 15 lessons a month. Normally in traditional lessons, you're getting like a lesson every other week or so. So this is just way too much for you to take in. So, the goal is for you to get some little nugget of something that you can really practice on, really work on. Once you feel like you have that, then you really don't need anything else from me. Go practice. That's where this stuff is really gonna happen. You're not going to get through this lesson and be able to play something really well. You're going to get through this lesson and have the information that you need to practice more effectively. That's really the goal here. So don't feel bad about taking off early. If you feel like halfway through the lesson you got as much as you can take in at that time, then go practice that thing, and then come back whenever you've got that thing down, or you're bored with it, or you just want to check out the next topic. Don't forget also that you've got the archives too. So if you want to see one little thing, just repeat it over and over and over. Just give me, hopefully within 24 hours after the lesson, this thing will be up in the archives, so you can just go back and watch it over and over and over and over and just get that little segment down. So this lesson specifically, out of the 8 categories of musicianship, is going to be one that's focused on ear training. So that means teaching you how to really process and categorize the sounds that you hear, whether it's something that's on the radio or something that some tune that you made up in your head. This is all about you being able to know, all right, so what are those sounds? What are the rhythms? How would I write that out? How would I play it? What key is it in? All of that stuff is ear training. So the other topics are going to be covered in other weeks, but this week, today, is going to be focused on ear training. All right, I'm ready. You ready? Let's go. Welcome back, and the quest continues for the perfect broadcast. By the way, thank you to everybody yesterday. Oh, speaking of. There we go. Did I mention the quest continues? So I was talking with a guy about the broadcast stream. So we're going to hopefully soon be able to, I'm told, we're going to be able to broadcast not only in the 1080p, but then also to the multiple platforms for those of you who are dying for me to get on to Twitch and the YouTube live stream. And so anyway, that hopefully is happening soon. I'm told that it is, as well as perhaps changing out the pianos as well, getting rid of this beauty and moving into other things. But anyway, for those of you who don't care about my equipment and junk, I totally understand. Let's move into the lesson. I want to thank all of you who are here with the our guest Zach Evans yesterday. Seems to be a really great guy, and I got to talk to him afterwards about some other stuff too. So anyway, that was pretty exciting, and hopefully you got some good questions in. You got your questions answered. You definitely got some good questions in. There were some not so great questions that came in too, but I think we cleared all that up. I won't say any names. John. So then today we're going to be cramming in the intermediate lesson and the advanced lesson for this thing. So let's jump in here and see what we can do. We talked a little bit on Monday about the major seconds, major thirds. Those were the ones that were 2 half steps away and then 4 half steps away. So this is just the rest of the chart for all of the intervals pretty much that you're going to need to know, all 12 of them. So if you're going just 1 half step, then that's going to be called a minor second. And if this is not making sense, I think the beginner's lesson will help you out, since we had to make a jump over the Zach Evans lesson and we are cramming in the intermediate and the advanced. I'm assuming that you already have the beginner stuff down. So 1 half step is going to be called a minor second, and this time I'm giving you the examples both up and down. So in the beginner's lesson, we talked about major seconds and how that'd be like Frere Jacques. So any major second, any 2 half steps would go something like this, and that would sound like the beginning of Frere Jacques. What we didn't talk about is going down, going the other direction. So these 2 notes are a major second apart. But if we go the other direction, it's still a major second. The distance is still the same, and that's what an interval is. It's a distance. Make sure that you don't confuse that with it actually being the 2 notes. So I ask people, give me an example of a major second. And they seem to think that like that would be an example of a major second when the distance between those 2 notes is really the interval. So it might be a mile from my house to the park, but my house and the park have nothing to do with a mile. They're just markers to measure that distance. Same thing with the notes here. Here to here, that is a major second. The distance between those is the major second. So going down then, that no longer sounds like Frere Jacques. Now some people have advanced enough ears that they can hear a down interval going from a higher note to a lower note, and then in their ear they can reverse that and hear the Frere Jacques even though the Frere Jacques wasn't there. And they'll hear and then hear that that's a major second. For people like me, normal people, we've got to have an additional song that goes along with the major second. So that means that each of the 12 intervals can go in either direction and need a song labeled for each of those, for a grand total of 24. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 24. Bummer. 24 songs that will have to eventually be associated with some type of a label. Major second, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, and so on and so forth. So that's a whole lot. That's like a couple years worth of work. Yeah, it's a lot of intervals. So we're going to go down here would be Mary Had a Little Lamb. So this is major second. Up sounds like Frere Jacques. Going down sounds like Mary Had a Little Lamb. So those 2 notes are major second apart. There's 2 ways to play them, and there you've got 2 songs. You actually got 2 songs for each of those. Like we said in the beginner's lesson, though, I wouldn't try to memorize all of the songs that have to do with a specific interval. I would just do whichever one is most obvious to you and seems to work in every case. Mary Had a Little Lamb may not be as convincing a song as Deck the Halls. So whatever song those 2 notes make up in your mind, if it's Mary Had a Little Lamb or Deck the Halls, then that should be the song that you go with. For all of these, that's going to be true for your major seconds, your minor seconds, your major thirds, minor thirds, major thirds. And then we have these intervals called perfect intervals. So the perfect intervals are just the intervals that are equal in both directions, or they have a complementary interval as well. So in other words, if you go from here, from C up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 half steps, then on your chart, that is called a perfect fourth. So up 5 half steps. That right there is a perfect fourth. So from here down to here, perfect fourth. From here up to here. So C to F is a perfect fourth. Not every time. So if you go from C to F, that's different than going from C down to F. Because this distance is 7 half steps. So going up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 half steps up to F, or down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 half steps down to here. So C to F is either a fifth, a perfect fifth, that would be this one right here, the 7 half steps, or it's 5 half steps. So those two intervals are perfect because they complement each other and make up a perfect octave, the same note on both sides, which is why you also have, did we put in? No, we didn't. That was smart. Good. We also have a perfect octave, which is just the distance from any note to that same exact note, 1 octave away. So a perfect octave has the complementary interval of a perfect unison, which is from any note all the way to that exact same note. From here to here, that distance is 0, and we call that distance of 0 a perfect unison. And if you add that perfect unison, that 0, to a perfect octave, you get an octave, because an octave and a unison complement each other to make an octave, which is logically frustrating. It's like saying 57 plus 0 is 57. Like it's the same thing. The unison did not help the octave at all in gaining the octave, but I guess technically they're complementary. They go together to make a perfect octave. So anyway, there's the craziness of the music theorists that make up all these rules. So the perfect fourth is 5 half steps. Perfect fifth is 7 half steps. That's the sound. Now, theoretically, since we are dealing with a lot of theory here, theoretically, this distance could be called something else. If this gets too confusing, then just throw it out because it has nothing to do with ear training. I'm just throwing this in for those of you who are in Clopple Academy and working on these other weird augmented intervals. If you go from a C to an F and it's 5 half steps, then that is a perfect fourth because there are 4 letters involved here: C, D, E, and F. There we go. So that's 4 letters, so it's a fourth of some kind, and the distance is 5 half steps. So 5 half steps and 4 letters is a perfect fourth. However, if you're going from C to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, E sharp, instead of calling this an F, if you call this an E sharp, then it has to be a third of some kind because that only includes 3 letters, C, D, and E. All right, so C, D, and E has to be some kind of third. It's not a major third because a major third would be 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps like we talked about in the beginner's lesson. So this is an additional, it's a 1 half step larger. So it's an augmented third. C up to E sharp is an augmented third. C up to F is a perfect fourth. Now, the reason we don't care at all about that for ear training stuff is because when you hear these, you don't get letter names along with the sounds that you get. It's just that note to that note. And it doesn't matter if you're hearing that as an augmented third, which is stupid, or if you hear it as a perfect fourth, which is way more common and totally helpful. It's just those 2 notes. So you don't have to know what all of the other, like I guess they'd be enharmonic equivalent intervals are named and what they sound like, because an augmented third sounds exactly like a perfect fourth. If you know how to hear a perfect fourth, then you can find the notes. If you're on this note and you hear a perfect fourth up and you can get to that note, then it doesn't matter that on the sheet music they called that a C sharp instead of a D flat, and so that technically it was a whatever. It doesn't matter. So just the goal of this stuff is that you can hear a song, you can sit down and you can play it back. But like I said, this is maybe a couple years worth of work. I mean, if maybe hopefully, if you didn't hear the Zach Evans interview, you have to at least like fast forward, go check it out and fast forward to the middle where we're talking about like practice time. Because I ask him like a bunch of the questions that you all ask me and all of my in one-on-one students ask me, and everybody asks every teacher, which is how long does it take to get good? How and you can hear him fudging just as much as I do when I get asked that question, like depends on who you are and how much practice time. But it all kind of boils down to it's going to be, if you're grinding away for several hours, it's going to be several months of this stuff before you get to be proficient. And the problem is once you get to be proficient, then you don't see yourself as proficient because then you see where you need to go next. So you're always stuck with almost the exact feeling that you probably have right now, which is I'm almost good. Like I know what I need to practice, but it's hard to do. And once I can do that, then I'll be happy. Which is a lie. It's an absolute lie. So that's why we say just enjoy the journey. Like if you're not having fun doing something that you couldn't do in the past, but you can do today. If that's not fun for you and you don't enjoy the challenge of working through some of this stuff, grinding through some of this stuff, I guess the grinding isn't as much fun, but working through some of it and accomplishing that and seeing those little tiny pieces of progress along the way, if that's not for you, then maybe this thing isn't for you, because that's what you're going to be doing. That's what I'm doing. That's what Zach Evans is doing. That's what Kyle Landry is doing. That's what you're doing. We're all really quite literally on the same path together. That's not literal. That's totally figurative. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, we've got a bunch of intervals here. What I would recommend is, unless you already have a bunch of these down and this is not new information to you, but this is just a new chart for you to help you organize some of your thoughts and what you hear, then I would recommend just taking 2 or 3 of these and really trying to hear these. You do not have a MP3 along with this one. It says the answer is on the next page, and there's no next page. Why is that? That's because I didn't get it done in time, because there was like 50 or 100 intervals. There's a lot of intervals that I was working on, and I just didn't get them all done. So if you're in the archives, there should be a second page for you there. And just like on the beginner's lesson, it has all of the sheet music representation of what the MP3 play along will have. But right now, your MP3 is dead, and there's no second page. Boo, Jamin. Do more in a day. Do more. I'm trying. All right, so that's our whole lesson, I guess. Send in your questions, and let's do our wrap-up. So the first thing is we talked about the intervals and about how each interval is some distance in half steps, and how there is a grand total of really 24 intervals that you need to know if you're counting up and down as 2 separate intervals. So you need to know, for example, a major third up, what that sounds like, and also what a major third down sounds like, because as it turns out, songs go both high and low within the same song. So you need to hear the difference between going up and going down. You've got 24 of those to do, and we said it should take you quite a long time unless you are well down this path, and this is just supplementary, adding in maybe like the tritone intervals or something like that you might not already have. And some of these, all of these, are more or less difficult to hear based on the context. So if you're in Clopple Academy, pretty much you just get the 2 notes, and it's all just very academic and very much in a vacuum of, here's your first note, and here's your second note. What was that interval? And that's the way it'll be if you take like a college course or something like that, and some ear training course or some theory course. But in the real world, when you're wanting to hear, some Justin Bieber tune, and you're hearing that first note, and you're trying to figure out what that second note is going to be, that's got a whole band going on, and instead of being on the piano, it's a dude's voice, or it's a guitar in the background or something. So it's always got a lot more context around it. So this stuff in a vacuum is difficult. Depending on what key you're in, sometimes it'll be more difficult. If you've got, for example, if you're in the key of C and you hear the notes, then that's going to be weird because one of those notes goes outside of the key. So notes that go outside of the key are going to be more difficult than obviously the ones that stay inside the key. So there's a lot of stuff that can make these intervals more or less weird. It's not like once you recognize a major third, then you're going to recognize every major third just as easily in every context at all. So anyway, just keep that in mind, and let's get to your questions. And all right. No questions today. All right, so archive people, you know what to do. Send in your questions, fill out the survey at the end of the lesson, and I will get those in. But let me just refresh one more time while I just waste a little bit of time here. And it looks like there is actually nothing there to answer. So either our chat isn't working or there are legitimately no questions. I'm going to go with the latter, but if it's the former, then you know how to get a hold of me. Most of you already have my cell phone number and whatnot. So I guess this is where I say, I love you. Until next time, good luck and have fun.